Jameson Redding with the Road Trip Angler, and I am in Washington State on the Oregon and Washington border. I've got the Columbia River behind me, and we're going to be chasing smallmouth bass with Brandon Waugh from Next Adventure and Jeff Little from Torqeedo Kayak Fishing.
Let's get some more.
Yeah, I'm about to hit the state line. Yeah, we travel like a freight line. Drop the kayak in and drop a bait down. We make it easier than 1, 2, 3. You want the tips, want the tricks with the ones to see. Ooh-wee! Come on. Cause everybody wants to fish, but can't nobody make the trips. But don't trip, cause we gon' make it when you can't miss out. Road trip angle, only thing we need is a route, no doubt.
We're in the Pacific Northwest, and we're actually fishing the Washington-Oregon border on the Columbia River. It's a pretty cool place. I've never fished here before, but it is beautiful. You've got mountains kind of lining both sides of the river. Super huge river, but it has these oxbow lakes or kind of offshoots on either side that you can get in and really have your own little private lake. I chose to take the NAR, what we call our big water boat. The boat is designed to handle rough conditions, whether you're on a big lake and the wind can pick up, or you're even offshore when you're dealing with swell and things like that. So I took the NAR to be able to handle those type of conditions, and I knew I had confidence that getting me back safely. And my favorite part about this trip, or about this location, is that we're chasing one of my favorite fish. We are catching smallmouth bass, and I love being able to chase after these fish. I mean, they're one of my favorite species of fish, period. Smallmouth just seem to fight harder, they're aggressive, and they're just beautiful fish. So chasing them in a new location is awesome to me.
I'm Jeff Little. I'm sales manager with Torqeedo Electric Outboard.
Jeff and I have known each other for, I don't know, probably over 10 years. So when we decided to come out here on the West Coast, we just wanted to pool our efforts and come together, visit some shops, and get on the water together out here and just get to hang out with the kayak fishing community that we wouldn't normally get to see.
When we got out here and I knew that, hey, we'd be catching river smallmouth in a different type of river, I was pretty excited to try and figure out how I can pattern these fish in a pretty wildly different type of river from what I'm used to back east.
We're out here with Brandon. Brandon, what is the plan for today? We're gonna be smallmouth bass fishing, but this is a lot bigger river than I'm used to fishing.
Yeah, we're gonna be chasing smallmouth. Traveling all the way out here to try smallmouth in a different part of the country. That's going to be the best thing. We're going to have smallmouth in all 3 phases of spawn. Luckily the weather pushed back a little bit, so we're going to have a really rare opportunity. This river runs 1,200 miles from Oregon and Washington. It's massive. It's the largest river system on the West Coast, so it's going to be fun.
This is awesome. It'll be my first smallmouth, maybe on the West Coast. So
that's going to be fun. Let's go. The Columbia River Gorge holds a bunch of different species. The primary, the Chinook salmon, for hundreds of years, people have made their income chasing those fish as guides or even here as Native Americans. We also have a lot of bass as well, from smallmouth bass, which we will be chasing today, and also largemouth bass. You also have walleye, a run of American shad, and so much more.
As soon as we get to the ramp, we're getting everything set up. We're trying to stay out of the way of anybody that's launching, big boats. But there was a gentleman that had launched his boat. He'd been having some motor issues, and he wasn't actually able to get back up to the dock. We all had Torqeedos, and while these are awesome little motors to put on the back of a kayak, they're actually designed to push over 1.5 tons and go on the back of things like sailboats. So I figured that I'd be able to go out there and lend him a helping hand and drag his boat back to the ramp for him.
The Torqeedo Ultralight has 105-pound thrust, which actually is designed to handle up to 3,000 pounds of pulling power. It was really cool that he was able to help this boater out and help him get back to the ramp where he could address his motor issues.
This is such a giant body of water. to me was overwhelming to try to figure out how to break that down. I'm used to fishing smaller creeks and rivers back home where you can kind of piece them apart and figure out where those fish are holding. But this river is massive and there's all kinds of flats and shoals, and luckily Brandon knows where to go in this river because he spent a lot of time there, and he was able to utilize his graphs and charts to find the right locations. So this little bushy point here,
Yeah, there's a grass flat that comes out. It's like an underwater point. I mean, we'll check out here. Some of this backwater, that island can be good. It's hard to say what they're exactly doing, but we'll give it a shot.
one of the cool things about bass in general is that when the water temp gets a certain degrees, they start transitioning from an area where they kind of congregate and hold to a flat somewhere where they can spawn. And when they do that, they will all kind of stack up on different areas, usually around some rock, usually around flat area with some grass and things like that. So it's kind of easy to figure out where they're going to be.
When we get to some of these back areas to get out of the wind, we're gonna be chasing fish up shallow. We're gonna have pre-spawn, spawn, and post-spawn. So there's gonna be endless opportunities to catch all three. We'll catch some with some big bellies on them, some of them that are gonna be up shallow on beds, and also some that are gonna be really skinny from post-spawning. But those ones are typically gonna be the bigger ones, willing to eat our bait because they're exhausted and they're ready to eat.
Here he is. Yep, they want it faster. I was playing on the bottom just to see where the edge was. Kind of figured out the depth with the lure. That's a nice one. Oh, get in there. Yeah. That's so cool, man, to come to a spot I've never been before, ever. Literally within, what, 5 casts? Oh, they're down there.
Caught me off guard.
They are down there, man. Look at this. My first Washington smallmouth ever. Yeah, we're just kind of cruising out, having a good conversation about the area and kayak fishing. Got to the first place we're gonna fish, and 3 or 4 casts later, got validation that I had the right bait on. So let's go back and get another one. It's awesome.
They may not be totally up on beds in here yet. The bass are super aggressive right now. We can fish shallow, behind each other, in front of each other, do circles around each other, and this area does not get a lot of pressure, so we have a lot of chances to get up shallow, get the Torqeedos on, powered on, and all the noise and disturbance. So it's a really fun opportunity to catch these fish and maximize on the opportunities. There we go. Look how big that guy is compared to the swim bait. Just super aggressive. 13 inches, 6-inch swim bait. If it's pretty windy back here, I don't know how far we can go. It's always fun. This aggressive fish. We'll go take a look at a couple islands that's still on the outside bank, and it might be calm enough where we can target some fish in current.
One of the cool things about having a motor in this situation is these fish are obviously on bed and kind of guarding. So a lot of times there'll be, you know, the buck or the male and the female in that same area. Or there could be several beds in that same area. We've got wind and these fish are pretty strong. So between the two, I don't want to get pulled or pushed into the area that I'm actually fishing. So what I'm doing is as soon as I hook that fish, I'm just giving it a little bit of throttle so I can pull the boat away from that area that I've gotten the last few bites or that I've hooked the fish. That way I can land the fish out here away from it and not really blow up that area. So it's really a key thing about being able to utilize the motor for more than just getting to your spot.
So when you're fishing a wind-blown shoreline, a lot of people, tend to avoid that. Really what I was doing is angling my kayak into the wind and just using the throttle on the Torqeedo to point it into the wind, casting across and ripping it out and seeing who's home in this section, and then you slide over in the wind and work a different section. But for sure, using the motor is a critical part of maintaining boat position, not being blown into that shoreline that you're working. I'm thinking that wind-blown points, wind-blown banks is where I've got most of the good eats. I think when we're in the protected areas, I think those are spawning fish. They're coming up and mouthing it and not committing. Every good fish, every solid connection that I've had has been dealing with the wind, and for sure the Torqeedo comes into play. With the foot control steering, dealing with that wind, holding position so you can work these wind-blown banks. we're in clear water right here, but there's muddy water out in the main river, so they like that as an ambush point. We'll let him go now.
You know, there's an old saying that's you never leave fish to find fish.
Got him that time, I think. Woo! Looks like a good one.
I knew we had gotten some numbers. I wanted to find a bigger fish, and we made a decision to throw some different baits and also make a move. Yeah. Finding some fish out here. I tied on a jerk bait because that's what Jeff was catching them on and got bit.
We started switching things up, throwing different baits. We threw a Z-Man streaks to diesel minnows. We've thrown chatter baits and everything, and that just built confidence for out there today because a lot of those post-spawner fish were protective of their beds, and it just left us endless opportunities to try out our whole arsenal of baits. Good one, yeah, 3-pounder. Get here, girl. Would have been a 4-pounder if it was pre-spawn. And that's why you come to the Columbia River. Good frame on it. You gotta love the coloration on it. I think that's when you know you got the right bait. Pretty much what we're using is a Z-Man trick shots, green pumpkin goby. I got this weedless because a lot of the times on this river there's a bunch of grass. So I'm using an owner cover shot with that. Let's get her right back in. Thank you, girl. Let's get some more. Oh, caught me off guard. Really would like to throw a bait caster and some moving baits, but you know what? We're gonna take every single bite we can get.
All right, I kind of peeled off from the guys and just started working on some patterns. This is the biggest one I got so far. He's right at 20 inches. I switched to the Z-Man Stealth Blade, so it's a little more subtle, smaller profile than what I usually throw, and that's with this nice big Columbia River backwater smallmouth. Ah, she's beautiful.
I think I'm gonna put a slower presentation, something wacky rig, probably like a Zinkers, Z-Man Zinkers. Normally I would go lighter weight fluorocarbon, but this water's got a little bit of color to it, so I'm not really worried about that. I'd rather have the strength. Going with the 20-pound Seaguar gold label fluorocarbon. It's very subtle, very clear, and I have 20-pound Seaguar Smackdown, so a little double uni action here to get this tied together. Because I am going to use the Z-Man, I'm going to use a weighted hook here. The other cool thing about this area is, again, we're fishing the border of Oregon and Washington. And I don't know, there was just something about the grass being greener on the other side maybe, or the fact that I could take my kayak from one state to another state from that same launch. So we had to make the move from the Washington side over to the Oregon side.
All right, y'all, we're gonna make a move. We're gonna run to the Oregon side. We're gonna make about a mile run. We're gonna check out some other backwaters. It was fun in that area, but we're gonna try to change things up and fish the main river since the wind has died down. So we're gonna run across, run about a mile with these Torqeedos and see what we can do on the other side.
Somewhere around in here is the line. I don't know where exactly, but it's right in here.
All right, so we made a move to this area, fishing the main current, and what we're finding is some pre-spawn smallmouth that are moving up, and there's a big spawning area right next to us. So we're trying to catch these fish as they're moving up, and that was just a good sign of what we were able to find today. All right, y'all, we just made a move to the Oregon side, and we found some pre-spawners. I mean, that's a solid, probably 19-incher. Z-Man diesel minnows. Got them right away. Just fishing this ledge, and I think some of these fish are still moving up with this colder spring, so that's a solid one. We'll take this all day long if we get some more.
Got one. What an amazing day we've had out here. I mean, as soon as we got to this little back lake and made a few casts, we started catching fish, and it has been like that all day. I can't tell Brandon how much I thank you for sharing this area with me. Such a cool backdrop, such a cool place. For more content like this, be sure to subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching. Road Trip Angler would like to thank our global partners for helping support the mission to get people outside and on the water.